So in the tactical analysis video I released the other day, looking at why Ruben Amorim may want a centre forward like Cunha Delap, I spoke about the potential tactical issues that United could face with both Delap and Garnacho in the front three, specifically against deep defensive shapes where the space is restricted. However, when I look at a front line of Cunha, Delap and Garnacho, there are a few attributes that all three have that I think, if used right, could give United one of the most effective forward lines in the league. Although it would require some tactical flexibility in Ruben Amorim's game plan, this is more of a creative outside of the box idea of how to use the front three. But before I come on to the tactical breakdown, let's start with the attributes that all three players have in their skill sets that I think could radically improve United's ability to create high value chances, even against teams who want to sit deep in a compact defensive shape. Well, it's something I've talked about a lot this season: pace and power. See, all three of Delap, Cunha and Garnacho are significant threats when the attack is transitioned quickly, through the centre of the pitch in the middle third, progressing the ball into the final third, and I think Cunha especially could be the key to doing this. But before I go any further, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. They've got a variety of different currencies and retro jerseys, including this 2006-2007 white Manchester United away shirt with Ronaldo 7 on the back, which they did actually send me, as well as this Juventus Zidane shirt from the 90s as well, which are two jerseys that I have been wanting for quite a while, but were incredibly hard to find. If you use code Atlantis at checkout, you'll get a 10% discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comments section below. So in a video I did a month or so ago, which I will leave linked in the eye above, I compared Cunha stylistically to Kaká, and if we go back to when Wolves played Manchester United at Old Trafford on the opening day of the 23-24 season, you can visually see why I say this. See, whenever there was a turnover in the Wolves half, Cunha was always positioned slightly higher than the midfield line, often dropping into spaces behind United's central midfielders in order to open up a passing lane for Wolves to play a direct vertical pass into his feet, wherefrom Cunha could receive the ball just inside the middle third, midway inside his own half, turn efficiently and, just like Kaká would in the mid-2000s, drive the ball forward into the space available with very little hesitation. And Cunha's pace and power, combined with his close ball control and quick footwork, enabled him to drive straight through the centre of the pitch, forcing United players in front of him to step out and engage, which then meant that when he was able to evade the challenges, he had taken them out of the game, allowing him to then drive forward into the final third, where Wolves often had 3v3 or even sometimes 3v2 attacking advantages. And statistically, you can see how good Cunha is at doing this, as he has the fourth most carries into the final third of any player in the Premier League this season, behind only Iwobi, Guardiola and Doku, as well as the 9th most take-ons. But Cunha Delap, despite being more of a traditional centre forward, also possesses a similar type of powerful ball carrying ability, whether this is spinning into the channel with or without the ball before driving the attack forward from a wide position, or dropping off into a deeper area behind the opposition's midfield line to receive possession and then turn and drive the attack forward through the centre. And you can see from this graph just how effective Delap is at doing this when you compare him against every other Premier League striker this season, specifically looking at dribbles per 100 touches and their progressive action rate. And so if signed, this would give Ruben Amorim two players in the front line who have the ability to transition the attack at speed, from the United half into the final third, and against the likes of City, Arsenal and Liverpool, who are going to have sustained periods of pressure in United's half, this is obviously going to be a valuable asset to have. However, you may question whether this is going to be as effective against sides like Palace, Forest and Fulham, who are a lot more content to allow United to have the ball and instead sit off deeper in order to restrict this type of space. Well, the answer is that it can be, but it would require what on the surface may seem like a negative approach. See, let's say for example that United are playing a side like Crystal Palace, Fulham, West Ham, whoever it is at home. Well, the majority of the time when the opposition have the ball in their build-up phase, you are likely to see Ruben Amorim's side positioned high up the pitch, ready to press aggressively in that 3-4-3 shape. However, my thinking is that if you have Cunha, Delap and Garnacho in the front three, with this also being relevant if Cherki, Bruno or especially someone like Mbeumo was replacing Garnacho in that position, instead of looking to press these sides aggressively, why not just drop off into the middle third and allow the opposition to move out of their defensive third with possession? See, fans and pundits seem to have this idea that top sides like Manchester United need to be constantly trying to play in a so-called progressive style, especially playing at home against the lower table sides, and this involves pressing high, looking to win the ball back as quickly as possible and then dominating possession, pushing the opposition deep into their defensive third. However, this is exactly what sides like Forest and Palace want, as we've seen these types of sides in the Premier League be incredibly successful against the bigger teams by dropping deep and looking to create on the counter, and we've seen from United over the past few seasons, especially under Amorim this season, that this is the exact type of defensive setup that we struggle to create against. If you press the opposition high up the pitch in their defensive third during their build-up phase, most of the time you don't even end up winning the ball back high up the pitch, because these aren't the type of sides who are going to constantly look to play through the pressure via short passing into play through the centre. And so counter-pressing opportunities become very infrequent, as usually they just end up going long, wherefrom they either win an aerial duel, get a knockdown, or win a second or loose ball, allowing them to now attack quickly through the middle third with United's defensive shape disorganised, or alternatively United regain possession, the opposition drops off, and United now have to try to break them down, which leads to a continuous cycle where the opposition only really needs one or two long ball patterns of play to come off to work the ball into a chance creating position, and then the quality once or twice in a game to take the chance, leaving United with a 1-goal loss in a game that they dominated in terms of possession but struggled to create high value goal scoring opportunities in. And so instead I'm thinking, why not just allow the opposition to start their attacks from inside the middle third or even on the halfway line. From a defensive point of view, the back line doesn't have to push as high, reducing the amount of space around and behind them, alongside reducing the space between the lines of the system overall, compared to an aggressive man-to-man pressing shape where the front and midfield lines are pushing forward with intensity, leaving a lot more space between the lines for the opposition to exploit. Now, a lot of people may see this as parking the bus against sides that United should be dominating possession against. However, it's really not. It's just setting up the opposition in an optimal way for you then to attack. When the opposition go direct from the defensive third under pressure, even if United do win the ball back in the opposition's half, their centre-backs are so deep that there's no space in behind, and the central midfield is usually also positioned behind the ball, able to then drop back and restrict the space in the centre of the pitch. However, when starting their attacks from midway or even pushing United back into their defensive third, now there isn't the same sort of space in behind for direct passes, and the opposition are forced to play through the centre or go out wide. And with United's defensive shape being a lot more vertically compact in this phase of play, the three centre-backs as well as the double pivot in front, specifically Ugarte, are now in closer proximity to players receiving the ball, allowing them to apply pressure faster, increasing the probability of them winning the ball back compared to if they are pressing higher up the pitch, where they have greater distance to cover and more space around them. And now after the turnover, because the opposition was set up in their possession shape in United's half, there is now more space centrally for the likes of Cunha and Delap to receive the ball in, turn and then drive the attack forward, leading the counter-attack on their own. If you've got Cunha out of possession sitting in this narrow position, slightly higher and to the left of the midfield double pivot, he can now move horizontally to open up a passing lane, receive the ball from one of United's deeper players after a turnover, and you've got Delap and Garnacho ahead, both of whom excel when running in behind the back line into space. Delap can receive passes down the outside of the centre-backs before looking to drive them back into the final third, whilst Garnacho loves to use his anticipation, off-the-ball movement and acceleration to make these type of sharp runs between the fullback and centre-back, looking to get released into a 1v1 position. But also with Cunha, you've also got a player who's exceptionally quick, and so unlike Xerxes when he drops off to link a counter-attack, Cunha has the pace to keep up with play and get into a goal-scoring position himself. See, it's a lot easier to create high-value chances on the counter where you're in a 3v3 or a 4v4, something like that, rather than against a deep defensive shape where the opposition has at least 8, maybe as many as 9 or 10 outfield players behind the ball. And so against the lesser sides, if you combine this tactical strategy of not pressing them high and instead allowing them to start their attacks higher up the pitch, you can now use the front foot ball winning ability of Ugarte and the three centre-backs to win possession and allow you to set up these sort of counter-attacking opportunities a lot more often than you otherwise would be able to if you were constantly looking to press high and dominate possession. And it's not even really being negative, because simply retaining possession, controlling the game, but not creating frequent chances can be just as boring and ineffective offensively as sitting deep and allowing the opposition to control the game. Factor in that United look far better defensively in the Europa League, where they're able to sit off deeper in a compact 5-4-1 shape, And you can maybe start to see how Cunha Delap and Garnacho could be an incredibly effective front three, and not just against a bigger sides when using a more defensive counter-attacking strategy. So let me know what you think of my analysis in the comments section below, and if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. I'll leave it linked in the description and comment section, and you can use code Atlantis at checkout for a 10% discount. And also, if you want to sign up to my Patreon to see my transfer plan or read any of my articles, you can get a 7-day free trial. I'll leave it linked on the end screen now.